Hello and welcome to my channel. In this video, I'm gonna do a full chapter-by-chapter summary of the book From Blood and Ash by Jennifer L. Armentrout. A forbidden romance. Ancient gods. Dark secrets that could destroy a kingdom. This is the story of the maiden who was never meant to be saved. Let's begin. Chapter 1, Penelope, the maiden known as Poppy, enters the Red Pearl Den in Macedonia disguised in a white domino mask and a borrowed blue cloak. She carries a bloodstone dagger with a woven bone handle. Poppy sits at a card table with 3 guards from the rise. Eric, a young guard, describes finding a man named Finley dead near the blood forest, drained of blood, his flesh chewed up and torn to pieces. Phillips Roddy, an older guard, stops the discussion. Poppy drinks champagne and observes the patrons, noticing electricity provided by the royal court. She is approached by a beautiful woman who reveals she knows Poppy is the maiden. Victor Wardwell, Poppy's personal guard, enters the establishment. The woman helps Poppy hide by directing her to an upstairs room. Poppy enters the 6th door on the left just as a male chuckle sounds in the hallway. Chapter 2. Poppy is pulled against a very hard, very male body inside the private room. She recognizes the man as Hawke Flynn, a rise guard recently arrived from the capital. Hawke mistakes Poppy for a maid named Britta. He removes his black tunic and hauls Poppy to his chest, guiding them to the bed. Hawke kisses her, which Poppy describes as hard and overwhelming, claiming, "He breaks the kiss and realizes she is not Britta because the last time I kissed the owner of this cloak, she damn near sucked my tongue down her throat." Hawke teases her, calling her princess and asking for her name. He reveals he joined the rise because he did not want to be a farmer like his father. Their interaction is interrupted by Kieran pounding on the door. Kieran announces that an envoy has arrived and they must leave immediately. Chapter 3, Hawke continues to question Poppy's identity but agrees to her request not to remove her mask. He removes her blue cloak and touches her through her thin white gown. He asks what she wants, stating, "Tell me what you enjoy, so I can make you love it." He kisses her neck and the tip of her breast. While doing so, Hawke discovers the bloodstone dagger sheathed against her thigh. He unsheaths it, noting it is bloodstone and woven bone. Hawke questions why she possesses such a unique weapon, remarking that learning how to use a dagger isn't exactly common for females in Solis. He thrusts the blade into the mattress. Kieran knocks again, stating the supplies we've been waiting for have arrived. Hawke dons a baldric and sheaths 2 serrated short swords. He asks Poppy to wait for him, but she decides to leave the room. Chapter 4. In her castle chambers, Poppy eats biscuits while her companion, Tawny Lion, questions her whereabouts. Poppy admits she snuck out to the Red Pearl using a borrowed cloak. Tawny warns, "If you ever go to the Red Pearl without me again, I will cut holes in the bottoms of your shoes." They discuss the upcoming ascension on Poppy's 19th birthday. Poppy reflects on her mother's permission to refuse the ascension and the weight of her white silk veil. Tawny mentions rumors of mist gathering beyond the blood forest. Later, Victor Wardwell arrives at Poppy's door to summon her. He informs her that there's a cursed, meaning a person has been bitten by a creature from the mist. Poppy and Victor exit the castle through a servant's access to reach the lower ward. They find a house marked with a white handkerchief. Chapter 5, Poppy and Victor enter Agnes's home, where her husband, Marlowe, lies bitten. Agnes collapses, calling Poppy a child of the gods. Poppy uses her gift to ease Agnes's pain. In the bedroom, Poppy identifies a bite wound above Marlowe's hip with ragged tears seeping dark oil. Marlowe's canines have elongated, signifying he is turning into a craven. Poppy reveals herself as the maiden and eases his pain. Marlowe asks if she is the god of the common man and endings. He mentions another guard, Ridley, was also bitten. Poppy uses her bloodstone dagger to pierce the soft spot at the base of his skull, severing the brain stem to give him a dignified death. She wipes the blood on a towel and replaces her mask. Poppy rushes to find Ridley, fearing a massacre is imminent. Chapter 6, Poppy and Victor learn Ridley's father killed him. They return to the castle via Wisher's Grove. Victor warns Poppy about the risks of her actions, stating, I think you want to be caught. He believes she is afraid of the ascension. Poppy denies this, asserting she helps people to avoid loved ones be burned to death. The next day, Poppy skips training. Rylan Keel reminds her to wear her veil and slippers for an evening walk. In the banquet hall, Lord Brandol Mazine corners Poppy in an alcove. He touches her lip and jaw, threatening to tell the Duke she was disrespectful. Screams interrupt them. A lady in wait, Melissa Axton, is found dead in a nearby room with her neck twisted at an unnatural angle. Poppy observes deep puncture wounds on Melissa's neck and notes a lack of blood. Chapter 7, Poppy and Rylan enter the Queen's garden to observe night-blooming roses. As the flowers open, an arrow protrudes from Rylan's chest. He gasps, "Run," and dies instantly. A hooded man with a bow appears and orders Poppy to stand. Poppy uses her bloodstone dagger to stab the man in the side. He growls an inhuman sound and hits her jaw and temple. He snarls, "I will bathe in your blood and feast on your entrails." A whistle signals his retreat. Poppy wipes her blade on Rylan's breeches and meets Victor and other guards. In a sitting room, a healer treats Poppy's wounds. Duchess Jacinda Tierman orders the jacaranda trees torn down. Victor reveals the arrow carried the Dark One's promise. The Duchess identifies the attacker as an Atlantean and warns Poppy, "The Dark One has come for you." Chapter 8, Victor and Tawny escort Poppy to her chambers. Poppy insists on attending Rylan's funeral despite protocol. Victor warns her that no matter how or when it happens, it will not be your fault. Poppy bathes and scrubs away Rylan's blood. She examines the scars on her face and forehead from a previous attack. She reflects on her mother's refusal to ascend to marry her father. Tawny asks if the king and queen will summon her early. Poppy worries they will petition the gods to move up the ascension. At dawn, Poppy and Victor go to the Undying Hills pyre. Poppy is veiled and in white. Hawke Flynn appears and offers to watch Poppy while Victor lights the pyre. Hawke vows to keep her safe with my sword and with my life. Hawke vows the attack will never happen again. Chapter 9, Poppy trains with Victor in an unused room. She bests him twice by holding a dagger to his throat. They discuss Rylan's replacement. Victor mentions Hawke Flynn is a candidate despite being quite young for a member of the Royal Guard. He notes that Hawke is exceptionally skilled and held in high regard by the capital. Later, Poppy attends the weekly city council in the Great Hall. She stands on the dais beside Duchess Jacinda. Hawke is present, standing between two pillars. Magnus the steward presents Mr. and Mrs. Toulas. They hold their third son, Tobias, and beg that he not be taken for the right because they lost their first two sons to a sickness of the blood. The Duke and Duchess refuse. The Duke states, "In 1 month from his birth, you will give him to the high priests." Chapter 10, Tawny secures Poppy's veil the morning after the city council. Poppy reflects on the Toulas' infectious taint and Hawke's angry expression during their plea. She considers petitioning the Queen for change once she returns to the capital. Victor arrives to announce Poppy has been summoned to meet with the Duke and Duchess. They walk to a castle office where Poppy finds the Duke, Duchess, Commander Jansen, and Hawke Flynn. The Duke addresses Poppy as Penelope and announces that Guard Flynn will replace Rylan effective immediately. Commander Jansen states Hawke is able to look at possible threats with fresh eyes. The Duchess notes Hawke has recent experience with the dangers outside the Rise. The Duke orders Commander Jansen to step outside. He tells Hawke he is about to bear witness to what only a select few have seen, an unveiled maiden. Poppy is commanded to reveal yourself. Chapter 11, Poppy unhooks the chains of her veil to reveal her face to the Duke, the Duchess, and Hawke. The Duke stares at her scars, stating, "Half of her face is a masterpiece. The other half a nightmare." Hawke steps forward and counters the Duke, saying, "Both halves are as beautiful as the whole." He then takes his formal oath as Poppy's personal royal guard, placing his hand on his broadsword and bowing. Breaking protocol, Hawke swears to keep Penelope safe rather than addressing her as the maiden or chosen. Afterward, Poppy retreats to her room with Tawny, where she confesses that she and Hawke have already kissed. Tawny suggests that things are about to get so much more exciting now that he has been named as her guard. Chapter 12, Poppy and Tawny sit in the castle atrium while Hawke stands guard. Ladies-in-wait Loren and Defina join them, attempting to attract Hawke's attention by dropping items and feigning a faint. They discuss the upcoming rite and rumors that Prince Castile, the Dark One, is in Three Rivers. Poppy speaks to Loren, criticizing her for viewing rebellion as entertainment. She senses a mixture that reminded me of fresh air on a warm day and then something acrid coming from Loren. Hawke interrupts to announce that the Duke has summoned Poppy. As he escorts her, Poppy trips on a staircase, and Hawke catches her. He whispers that he has seen her on the balconies watching him train. They reach the Duke's suite, where Lord Maiden is also waiting. Chapter 13, Inside the Darkwood suite, the Duke expresses disappointment in Poppy for speaking to the ladies-in-wait and for her lack of attention with the priestesses. He orders her to remove her veil so he can inspect her scars. The Duke calls the scars an unfortunate flaw. He informs her that Priestess Analia believes her relationship with Tawny has become too familiar. When Poppy corrects the Duke for misnaming Rylan, he sentences her to 7 lashes with a blood forest cane. Poppy undresses her upper body while Lord Maiden watches. The Duke strikes her 7 times across her back and shoulders, reminding her that the lesson is for your own good. Poppy refuses to make a sound during the punishment, staring at a painting of worshippers. Chapter 14, Victor replaces Hawke outside the Duke's suite and escorts the injured Poppy back to her room. He reveals that Hawke had sent for him out of concern. Poppy spends 2 days in isolation as Tawny applies healing ointment to her back. On the 3rd night, Poppy watches from her window as the torches beyond the rise are suddenly extinguished. Fiery arrows arc into the air, and an unnatural murky white mist begins to blanket the flames. Poppy recognizes the signs of an impending attack and prepares to leave the castle to fight. She ignores Tawny's pleas to stay and instead retrieves her bow, quiver, and a black hooded cloak. Poppy tells Tawny to use the hidden weapons in the room if needed. She exits through the servants' access. Chapter 15, Poppy slides under a closing iron door to reach the stone bridge leading to the rise. She climbs into an empty battlement and begins firing bloodstone arrows at the invading craven. She observes milky white creatures with fiery coal eyes swarming the guards below. Several cravens scale the wall, prompting Poppy to shoot them down before they can reach the archers. After the mist thins and the fighting subsides, Hawke finds Poppy in the battlement. He calls her magnificent and beautiful. Poppy tries to flee, but Hawke catches her by the arm. She uses a combat move to sweep his legs, then throws a dagger at his face, which he catches midair. They struggle until Hawke pins her against the wall, calling her princess and noting her woven bone dagger. Chapter 16, Hawke confirms he has known Poppy's identity since she removed her veil for the Duke. He admits he returned to the room at the Red Pearl the night they met but found her gone. He promises not to report her actions because he needs her to trust him. Kieran calls for Hawke from the ground, prompting him to release Poppy and tell her to hurry back to your chambers. Poppy returns through the secret entrance and explains the craven attack to Tawny. Hawke later knocks and enters the room. He dismisses Tawny, stating that as Poppy's personal guard, he has the authority to remove threats, including those who help Poppy lie about her whereabouts. Tawny exits the room, leaving Poppy and Hawke alone to finish their conversation. Chapter 17, Hawke and Poppy sit by the fire in her chambers. Hawke notes that Poppy is brave and strong and mentions seeing her discomfort during the council meeting. Poppy shares the history of her scars, detailing the craven attack on Anin that killed her parents when she was 6. She explains that she trains because she refuses to be helpless. Hawke reveals that he and others have also helped the cursed die with dignity, just as rumors suggest Poppy has done. He urges her to wear better shoes and thicker clothing for future excursions. The next morning, Victor trains Poppy in hand-to-hand combat, emphasizing that she should use her core for strength. Victor reveals that Hawke told him about her being on the rise. Poppy insists she trusts Hawke. Chapter 18, the Duke and Duchess address a somber crowd from the castle balcony. The Duke claims the Craven attack was a result of the gods being unhappy with those who lose faith and support the Dark One. Poppy uses her gift to sense terror and anger radiating from the crowd. Hawke and Victor engage in verbal sparring while guarding her. A blonde man in the crowd, whom Poppy recognizes from the council, interrupts the speech, calling the royals liars. He demands to know the truth about the missing children given to the right. The man throws a severed Craven hand at the Duke, shouting, "From blood and ash, we will rise." Royal guards seize the man as the Duke laughs, claiming the gods have revealed a descentator. Chapter 19, Hawke ushers Poppy and Tawny back into the castle. They discuss the blonde man's accusations about the third and fourth children. Hawke notes that no family has seen these children after they are given to the temples. Inside Poppy's room, Hawke checks for threats. He asks Poppy how the veil feels, and she admits it is suffocating. He tells her she has a choice not to wear it while they are alone. The following evening, Poppy meets the Duchess in her receiving room. She asks if her gift is maturing because she is sensing emotions like anger and fear. The Duchess confirms this is normal but warns her not to tell the Duke. She reveals the first maiden died at the hands of the Dark One. Chapter 20, Poppy reads historical texts to Priestess Analia while Hawke guards the room. Hawke interjects to correct the priestess's pronunciation of the Skotos Mountains. He claims his family is from farmlands near the range and mocks the priestess for being unable to master the accent. Poppy questions the priestess about the ascension involving drinking the blood of the gods. The priestess becomes enraged by Poppy's comparisons to Atlantean practices and tries to strike her. Hawke catches the priestess's wrist, threatening her to remove your hand from the maiden or face the consequences. After the session ends, Hawke and Poppy walk in the garden. Poppy accidentally uses her gift on Hawke and senses sadness, confusion, and arousal. Hawke mentions losing a brother, though he clarifies the brother lives. Chapter 21, Poppy sneaks out to the Athenaeum to retrieve the diary of Miss Willa Collins. While reading, she overhears the Duke meeting with a guard in a nearby room. She climbs onto a narrow stone ledge outside the window to avoid discovery. She listens as the guard identifies the descentator as Lev Baron and reports that the man's mother helped him talk. The Duke reveals he knows about the Death with Dignity network and plans to kill Lev himself. After the Duke leaves, Hawke calls to Poppy from the window. He pulls her back into the room and they have a tense, close encounter. Hawke discovers the scandalous diary and teases Poppy by reading an explicit passage aloud. He defines manhood for her before escorting her back to the castle. Chapter 22, Hawke asks how Poppy exited her room. She reveals a secret servant's access. She explains she hid on a stone ledge because the Duke arrived for a meeting. Hawke reveals that a descentator named Lev Baron was interrogated about the right children and a craven hand. Hawke admits he returned for Poppy at the Red Pearl as promised. He seizes Miss Willa Collins' diary and reads an entry regarding a man named Fulton. He teases Poppy about the scandalous material and defines manhood for her. They discuss whether she has ever been in love. Hawke admits he has been in love before in his home village. He tells Poppy she is a stunning, murderous little creature. Hawke returns to the castle with her. Chapter 23, Poppy prepares for the rite by wearing a red gossamer gown and mask. Victor escorts her and Tawny to the Great Hall where hundreds are gathered. Lord Mazine approaches Poppy and mentions a lesson regarding the priestess's displeasure. Poppy notices Mazine smells of jasmine. Agnes, the widow of Marlowe, approaches and asks to speak privately. Victor and Poppy meet her in a garden alcove. Agnes warns Poppy to be careful because the Dark One has come. Hawke arrives at the rite dressed in crimson and joins Poppy. Tawny joins the other ladies and wait to dance. The Duchess notes the Duke is running late. Hawke offers to take Poppy back to the garden to create good memories. Chapter 24, Hawke leads Poppy by the hand into the Queen's garden at night. He describes a hidden, warm spring cavern from his childhood village. He reveals he lost his brother and his best friend years ago. Poppy shares that she has few memories of her parents because she was so young during their attack. Hawke takes her to a large weeping willow at the edge of the garden. They enter the dark canopy where moonlight cannot penetrate. Hawke sits on a bench and pulls Poppy into his lap. He claims his duty is to protect her from the cold. They discuss the restrictions of being the Maiden. Hawke tells Poppy she is beautiful and her scars are a testament to her fortitude. Chapter 25, Poppy asks Hawke to kiss me, and they become intimate under the willow tree. Hawke eventually stops, stating he does not want to take advantage of her. They exit the willow and encounter Victor near the fountain. A verbal confrontation ensues between Hawke and Victor regarding their duties. Victor threatens Hawke and orders him dismissed. Victor escorts Poppy back, expressing disappointment in her actions. Poppy defends her choice to live, shouting that she has nothing. A loud cracking sound signals chaos in the Great Hall. Poppy runs into the room and finds the Duke's body. He is murdered and impaled on a banner rod with his own bloodstone cane. Above him, from blood and ash, "We will rise" is written. Chapter 26, glass windows shatter as archers fire into the Great Hall. Many people die, including Loren and the lady-in-wait, Defina. Masked Descentaires dressed in the garb of the right storm the keep. Victor attempts to shield Poppy and Tawny from the wave of people. Poppy is trampled by the fleeing crowd and separated from the others. She retrieves a dagger and an axe, killing several attackers to defend herself. The Duchess and Lord Mazine hide in a greeting room. Descentaires breach the door with a battering ram. Hawke arrives and kills the Descentaire who mortally stabs Victor. Victor dies in Poppy's arms. In a rage, Poppy uses Victor's sword to kill and dismember Lord Mazine. Chapter 27, Poppy wakes in her chambers after 11 days of being sedated. Hawke has removed the sleeping powder from her room. He explains that Descentaires set fires on Radiant Row as a distraction. No Descentaires were captured alive. Over 100 people died in the massacre. Poppy attempts to sneak out to find Agnes, but Hawke catches her in Wisher's Grove. Her weapons have been removed and her secret exit barred. Hawke informs her that the Duchess has summoned her because word arrived from the capital. He helps her to the office, noting she is no longer sedated. Poppy asks if she is to be punished for killing Lord Mazine. Hawke reassures her he would not deliver her for punishment. Chapter 28, the Duchess informs Poppy that the King and Queen have summoned her to Carcedonia for safety. She reveals that Poppy will not be punished for Mazine's death, saying he was not worthy. Hawke argues with Poppy about leaving Tawny in Macedonia. He claims a small escort cannot protect a non-fighter out beyond the rise. Commander Jansen rules that Hawke will lead the journey. Poppy says goodbye to Tawny in private. The next morning, Poppy dresses in breeches and a sweater, leaving her veil behind. Hawke gives her back the bloodstone dagger he recovered from the right. The group, including Kieran, Phillips, and Eric, gathers at the rise. Poppy rides with Hawke on his horse, Seti. Chapter 29, Poppy and Hawke ride closely together as they cross the barren plains. They discuss the ruined farmhouses and the history of the land. Hawke reveals he still has Miss Willa Cullen's diary in his saddlebag. The group slows down to avoid giant rodents called barats. Eric describes how the plains were once fertile before the inhabitants were slaughtered. They reach the edge of the blood forest as the sun sets. The ground is covered in bones from craven and animals. The forest features twisted trees with gray-crimson bark and red leaves. It is unnaturally cold beneath the canopy. Hawke decides they must camp inside the forest because the horses need rest. Poppy keeps her dagger close, fearing an attack. Chapter 30, it is freezing inside the blood forest at night. Hawke insists on sharing a bedroll with Poppy to share body heat. He mentions that Victor warned him about her nightmares. They talk about the Ascension and her parents' decision to leave the capital. Hawke suggests the rules for maidens are archaic. He admits he is terrified of meeting the gods. Hawke begins to touch Poppy under the blankets to help her relax. They become intimate in the forest. Hawke places his hand over Poppy's mouth to silence her sounds. He tells her not to forget that this was real. Poppy eventually falls into a deep sleep in his arms. Chapter 31, Poppy wakes before dawn and overhears Hawke and Kieran discussing a task and their ride to Three Rivers. Kieran reminds Hawke of his orders. Hawke tells Poppy she is more worthy than anyone he has met. They resume the journey through the heart of the forest. Poppy notices stones placed in patterns resembling the royal crest. Suddenly, a large bar rat attacks, knocking a huntsman named Noah from his horse. Phillips kills the creature with a bloodstone arrow. A horde of bar rats runs past the group, fleeing toward the trees. An unnatural mist begins to gather at their knees. The group smells rot, signaling an imminent craven attack. Noah is seized by a craven. Chapter 32, the group dismounts to fight the craven in the mist. Poppy uses her dagger and later Noah's bloodstone sword to kill several creatures. Hawke kills the last remaining craven. Noah and 2 other guards are killed. Eric is mortally wounded by claws across his stomach. Poppy kneels beside him and uses her gift to ease his passing with happy memories. Eric recognizes her from the card game before he dies. Hawke and Phillips witness Poppy using her gift. The survivors ride through the night, passing the city of 3 rivers. They arrive at New Haven Keep during a snowfall. They are greeted by Elijah and a woman named Magda. Hawke departs with Elijah to speak privately. Chapter 33, Poppy asks Hawke to stay the night in her bedchamber at New Haven Keep. Hawke warns her that if he stays, she will not walk out this door the Maiden. Poppy disrobes, revealing scars on her arms, stomach, and legs to him. Hawke kisses her scars, stating they are a testament to your fortitude. They become intimate in the bed. Hawke uses his mouth on her before they engage in sex. During the act, Poppy notes his wicked sharpness and strangely sharp teeth. Hawke explains that he takes a monthly aid for protection. Afterward, Hawke asks her to promise she won't forget that this was real. He explains that Atlantean blood has healing properties and they can heal mortals without turning them. He reveals that his need for her is far too great. The chapter concludes with Hawke telling her she is more worthy than anyone I've ever met. Chapter 34, Poppy wakes to find the bed empty. Hawke had received cleaned clothes at the door and left to handle something. Later, Phillips Wardwell enters the room and warns Poppy that the keep is a trap. He reveals that guards Evans and Warren are missing and their beds were untouched. Phillips claims Hawke and Kieran are suspicious transfers who personally requested each other. He demands Poppy keep her hands visible as he escorts her to the stables, stating that Luddy and Bryant are waiting with the horses. As they enter the hallway, they encounter Kieran. Phillips unsheaths his sword and demands to know why Kieran is out. Kieran rumbles and his eyes glow iridescent. Kieran transforms into a massive wolven with fawn-colored fur. Phillips and Poppy flee toward the stables as the creature leaps onto the walls and launched himself off to pursue them through the keep. Chapter 35, Phillips and Poppy reach the stables and bar the doors with Luddy and Bryant. The wolven, Kieran, punches through the door and tears the wood free. Jericho, the man who killed Rylan, appears from the shadows and promises to bathe in my blood. Hawke arrives carrying a curved bow mounted to a handle. Hawke fires a bolt through Phillips' mouth, pinning him to a wooden pole. Delano appears and shoots Luddy in the back with a black bolt. Kieran, in wolven form, lunges at Bryant and kills him with a fleshy smack. Jericho moves forward, revealing he is missing a hand. Hawke reveals he sent Jericho to kill Rylan to get close to you. He informs Poppy that Hannes was killed with poison he drank in his ale at the Red Pearl Den. Hawke orders the wolven to clean the mess and states he needs Poppy alive. Chapter 36, Poppy realizes that everyone at the keep, including Magda and Elijah, is part of a conspiracy. Hawke confirms he came to Macedonia with Poppy as his one goal. Poppy attacks with Phillips' sword, cutting Jericho across the stomach. Hawke subdues her, and Poppy sees his fags for the first time. She realizes he is an Atlantean and calls him a monster. Hawke orders Delano to take her somewhere where she can't escape. The local Descentaires demand her death, shouting from blood and ash, "We will rise." Hawke silences them, declaring no one touches her. "No one but me." Poppy is dragged to the cells beneath the keep. She observes the ceiling is covered in a twisted, white mass of bones including ribcages and femurs. Delano brings her bread and cheese, explaining that if the prince wanted her dead, she would already be dead. Chapter 37, Hawke visits Poppy's cell and reveals he killed the Duke by impaling him with the blood forest cane. He claims the Ascended are vampires who feed on mortals and turn those they don't drain into craven. He asserts that temples are off-limits because children are used as a food source. Hawke reveals he was enslaved in a temple for 5 decades and was fed upon. He shows her a royal crest branded on my skin on his thigh. Hawke explains that the War of Two Kings began when King Malech ascended a mortal named Isbeth, the first vampire. He reveals that the Dark One is actually Prince Castile Denier and he plans to ransom Poppy to the Queen for his captured brother, Prince Malech. He states that King Denier and Queen Alona are still alive. He concludes by saying, "Not everything was a lie, Poppy." Chapter 38, Delano and Nail attempt to move Poppy from her cell. Jericho, Mr. Tulas, and 6 men ambush them to kill Poppy for vengeance. Jericho tells Nail that Malech is most likely dead. A fight ensues. Nail and Delano transform into Wolven to defend her. Nail slams a man into the bars, cracking the iron. Poppy retrieves a sickle-shaped sword and kills Rolf, a Wolven, by slicing through his neck. Jericho kicks Poppy, potentially breaking her ribs. Mr. Tulas steps out of the shadows and stabs Poppy in the stomach with a bloodstone dagger. Poppy pulls the blade free and collapses as her left leg gave way. Jericho prepares to cut off her hand as a souvenir. Before he can strike, a white-as-snow Wolven and Kieran arrive. Kieran orders the men to get the prince because Poppy is dying from her wounds. Chapter 39, Hawke arrives and bites his own wrist, commanding Poppy to drink from me to heal. She drinks his blood, which tastes like citrus in the snow. Her wounds heal instantly, leaving no new scars. Poppy feels razor-sharp lust from the blood. She realizes he is the Dark One and his real name is Castile. She slaps him and screams. She finds the bloodstone dagger and stabs Castile in the heart. She flees into the snow toward the woods. Castile catches her, explaining that an Atlantean can't be killed by a stab to the heart. He bites her neck, causing molten lava heat. They engage in sex in the snow. Afterward, Castile gives her his shirt and announces he is taking her to Atlantia. He reveals his fangs fully, showing 2 fine points. He tells her, "I should have known then, why they wanted you so badly." Chapter 40, Castile deposits Poppy in a bedchamber and leaves Kieran to guard her. Kieran explains that the mist that blankets the Skotos Mountains is a protection for the Kingdom of Atlantia. Poppy reflects on the revelation that the Ascended are vampires and her brother Ian is now one of them. She realizes the royals used the craven to keep the people in check. Kieran tells her that among my people, scars are revered. He notes that Castile wants you even though he knows better and that their situation will likely end in yet another tragedy. Poppy considers escaping but realizes she needs a weapon and has no avenue of escape from the room or the Wolven trackers. She acknowledges that she is in love with the Dark One despite his betrayals. She remains in the keep, waiting for Castile to return and escort her to dinner. Chapter 41, Castile returns and escorts Poppy to dinner. In the corridor, Poppy sees the attackers, including Mr. Tulas and Rolf, pinned to the walls with spikes of bloodstone. Jericho is alive, pinned through the throat while his blood pools on the floor. They join the entourage for a feast. Castile reveals Poppy is part Atlantean, explaining her gifts and her survival of the Craven attack. He explains that nature takes its course when mortals and Atlanteans cross paths. He notes the Queen kept her alive because they need her blood for them to complete the ascension. Kieran asks why they must go home. Castile answers that an Atlantean can only marry if both halves are standing in the soil of their land. He grasps Poppy's hand and declares, "We go home to marry, my princess." The book concludes with the group preparing to leave for the mountains. And that's how the book From Blood and Ash ends. What did you think? Have you read this book? Let me know in the comments if you loved it, hated it, or fell somewhere in between. If you want more book summaries like this, hit that subscribe button. I post new breakdowns every week. And if there's a book you'd like me to cover next, drop it in the comments. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.